Welcome to the 2021 Annual General Meeting for the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation. I'm Doug McDougall, the Chair of the Board of Directors for the past year. Thank you for joining us today. Our AGM will last approximately 45 minutes and will be recorded. And for the best experience, please close all other applications on your computer. Voting will be restricted to the directors, now members of the Stratford Perth County Community Foundation. And we will welcome questions and comments in the chat below, and that's the chat button at the bottom of the screen. Feel free to post questions or comments throughout the meeting, and we will address them at the end of the meeting. Feel free to keep your camera on or off, but please stay on mute. And as I mentioned, questions will be answered once the AGM concludes. I would now like to invite May Brooks, Vice Chair of the Board, to provide a land acknowledgement as we begin our AGM. May, please.
We acknowledge that Stratford, St. Mary's, and Perth County are on the traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and Ojibwe, who have long-standing relationships to the region. We wish to recognize the long history of the Indigenous peoples in Canada and their stewardship of the land, a responsibility that now extends to all peoples.
Oh, thank you, May. Yeah, my wife Barbara and I are blessed to have 3 parents with us still and living in Stratford, although now in 3 different places. We have experienced firsthand and are grateful for the essential front line that supports our community and parents. My parents are in their mid-90s. Dad went into the hospital in September and eventually moved to long-term care in February and received wonderful care along this long and arduous path, even though, even as he shrugged off COVID. Tough guy. My mom in virtual isolation in their home in Hamlet Estates, receiving Meals on Wheels every day, and thankfully lots of family and friends around with many distanced garage visits. And my mother-in-law, Esther, 102 years old, living in McCarthy Place with the same excellent level of support and care. We are truly thankful for our community and the services that are provided for the people that need it. I also work in agriculture and see what goes into the production of food and the hard work and the commitment to feeding our communities. And with all the changes and challenges COVID has put in front of us, I am amazed and truly thankful for the work that is being done. This year showed the type of communities we live in Perth County: caring, supportive, above self. This year underscored the importance of the Community Foundation's mandate and vision, rising endowments that are forever generating increasing support for our community needs. Your Community Foundation was able to grant over $500,000 this year with a small operational surplus and solid endowment growth. This is truly a home run year in a year of COVID. How did this happen? Focused, flexible, problem solving, and completely engaged staff. Thank you, Amanda, Roxy, and Heidi. You made this happen. A supportive board that did not hesitate to pivot and pitch in. Dedicated volunteers that serve on committees and in other supportive roles. Our community sponsors that unfailingly have supported the foundation in our march to sustainability. And of course, our donors that have and do embrace the vision of a community endowment forever. In closing, my dad, a Perth County farmer and clerk treasurer of Fullerton Township, taught me to make more than I spend, build capital, financial and relational, in order to have flexibility with opportunities or needs. He also instilled a culture of service and community support in our family. Thanks, Dad. And this exactly describes your Community Foundation, and I am honored to be a small part of this. Moving to the meeting, May I have a motion to accept the agenda of the 2021 Annual General Meeting for the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation for May 26, 2021 as presented?
That's Rick here. I so move.
May I second the motion?
All those in favor? Do we have enough, Heidi? No? I can
Doug,
see
I'm just looking at the screen. I'm wondering, Roxy, if you can put the screen back to.
We have 8 participants that have their hands raised.
Yes.
So.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Folks, we're just working on the votes here. Motion carried. Thank you. Approval. May I have a motion to accept the minutes for the 2020 Annual General Meeting held May 21st, 2020 as presented? I think I hear Lucille moving.
And I second Doug. Justin?
Thank you. All those in favor? I can see them. Thank you. Opposed? Motion carried. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest? None noted. At this time, I would like to call upon Stacy Campbell, Treasurer and Chair of the Finance and Investment Committee, and Vijay Vakanasan, Vice President, Finance and Operations for London Community Foundation, to present investment highlights for the year ending December 31st, 2020.
Thank you, Doug. The Community Foundation, to understand how our investments work, the Community Foundation co-pools our endowment investments with the London Community Foundation. By co-pooling our investments with the London Community Foundation, we are able to benefit from the guidance and expertise found at the London Community Foundation within their staff and their investment and finance committees. We are also able to provide more diversity in our portfolio and have access to asset classes and investments that a fund of our size would not have access to. I now ask Vijay from London Community Foundation to present the investment highlights for the 2020 year.
Thanks, Stacey. So everyone, first off, happy to join today, and even though not in person, to get to virtually see all your smiling faces. As mentioned, my name is Vijay Venkatesan. I'm the VP Finance and Operations at the London Community Foundation. And I'm also joined by Esther Toth, who's a manager on my team. So we're the two of the primes that work alongside Heidi and her team and the Stratford Finance and Investment Committee in ensuring that the partnership is working well. Roxy, I'll get you to go to slide 2. Thanks. And I got to thank Roxy too, because she's going to help and do the slide change for me. So I thought I'd start a little bit with an overview of the partnership, which we've had since August 2012. You know, as was mentioned, it's based on the premise of Stratford pooling the foundation's endowment funds with LCF. At LCF, all funds are invested according to one uniform investment policy statement, and that ensures that all of our donors, whether they have $1,000 or $1 million, and all of our pool funds, such as Stratford's, are getting the same level of oversight and review. Just like London Community Foundation, we know how important the donors are to Stratford, and with one overall investment program, Stratford's board, your Finance and Investment Committee, and all of you know you're our #1 priority, the same as our donors. And the next 2 points are really just to highlight that we know the importance of being timely and responsive to Stratford. So monthly reporting is provided to show the fund's performance, with us presenting quarterly updates at the Finance and Investment Committee meeting. And we're also open, we have an open invite to your Finance and Investment Committee to attend one of our LCF meetings so that you can audit our process or just hear firsthand some of the initiatives that we're focused on. And all of these are just ways we try to ensure that we have open and clear communication. Next slide, please, Roxy. So the pooling of investments and the managed funds on behalf of other community foundations or organizations, it's part of LCF's mission in providing support where we can to other organizations who are in the business of doing good. And so we've been managing assets for community groups in this support for over 20 years. So we continue to dedicate time, resources, our board committee efforts to ensure it's working well. We have a very simple philosophy, because it's recognizing that the changing investment committee members and volunteers that we may have around the table at any given time, that and our investment beliefs, which I'll talk to a bit later, they need to just be able to always know to focus on a couple simple things. So our investment philosophy is around two simple objectives. Capital preservation and the protection of donor contributed capital is first and foremost our most important objective. And second, steady income growth. The foundation is not trying to maximize returns at all costs. We're simply trying to ensure stable and gradual growth. We have a 5.5 annual average over a 10-year rolling period target, and that's what we try to stick to. Slide 4, please. Next slide, please, Roxy. Thanks. Oh, sorry, back a slide, I apologize. So our investment committee, who oversees the foundation's investment programs, we're very fortunate to have amazing volunteers on our committee. They're comprised primarily of high net worth financial advisors or money managers. However, we do round out the committee with other professional service advisors. So usually an academic in the investment field, a lawyer to CPA, and we will always ensure that we have at least one long-standing donor who has an investment background to make sure we're always applying the donor lens to our decision-making process. Now, our investment committee doesn't directly invest the foundation's assets. They're selecting top of class investment managers. So they're responsible for selection of those investment managers who will invest on our behalf. The investment managers all go through a formal selection process. And the committee's role then is to ensure that the managers are performing well and adhering to our strategy and criteria that align with our investment policy statement. And a committee always wants to remain timely in their role. So they're meeting at least quarterly to make sure that they can stay on top of all key issues. Next slide, please. So apart from that simple investment philosophy and the two objectives mentioned on capital preservation and steady income growth, the other difference we know for our committee in managing their clients' assets versus the foundation is that we are investing and giving with a timeline of perpetuity. So we ask of them with the discussions and decisions around the investment program that they always use the lens through these investment beliefs or what we call guiding principles. I'll quickly highlight what you're seeing on the slide. But the first two, which arguably are the most important, is the support that a solid strategic asset allocation and portfolio diversification are two proven factors that determine long-term success of an investment portfolio. 3 and 4 are around rebalancing and not being tactical. This is ensuring that we're not trying to market time around dips and peaks, but we're just continuously investing and contributing per that asset allocation that we've spent time on at each committee meeting to stay committed to a long-term objective of the portfolio performance. And 5 and 6 is around us being very fee and cost sensitive. We will only use active managers where it can be proven that they can outperform the relative index we compare them to over a 10-year rolling average, and that we also have that ability to select that manager. We're not in the business of making money, so we recognize that any fee or cost savings fall straight to you and to our other fund holders. And the last one is just around the due diligence process. It's to ensure our committee's commitment to always, with any new investment opportunity, ensure that we are going through a full review process, not just in isolation when looking at the investment class we may be looking at, but how is it going to impact the overall portfolio? Again, always going back to that philosophy, risk versus return, capital preservation, and steady income growth. Next slide, please. So a little bit about 2020 performance. So with COVID-19 and it becoming a global pandemic in late March, we definitely saw the impacts in the markets as they dropped worldwide. The rest of the year saw a gradual comeback of both domestic and international equities, as well as fixed income and our alternatives class. We were positioned well, which was great. And thanks also to a strong Q4, it saw us deliver a little over 5% for 2020. The committee was very happy with that because of how the fund performed during the drop. as well as our continued achievement of that 10-year rolling average target of 5 points. And what you've got highlighted there is a little bit about what we currently had at the end of 2020 as our asset allocation and where we were versus our target. Next slide, please. So this slide is really just to kind of try to do a snapshot of the overall activity of Stratford's Foundation's assets that are being held at LCF. This is all the contributions to the pool fund, all the income that's being earned, all the withdrawals as requested by Stratford to support all the great community initiatives, including that amazing 500,000 that Doug spoke to, as well as our admin fee. The fund is in great shape with over 5 million, and anything less than 10 years, we use a simple annual average calculation. And since inception, it's returning close to 7%. So we're happy with the performance. Next slide, please. And so just the last slide is just to highlight that the committee are continuing to refine our approach and forward-looking in opportunities. We don't want to just rest on our laurels or past success. So these are just a few areas we're planning to focus on. The first one is around that asset allocation review. We started a formal review in 2020. It's continuing in 2021, and it's really just to ensure that the current asset allocation we have can achieve that 10-year rolling average target. Early signs and indications are pointing to it will not. So we're already starting to look at, well, what other asset classes fit within our investment beliefs that could get us that additional return without too much risk. Number two is around impact investing. We've been committed to it since 2014 with our tagline, aligning our investments with our mission. It is a separate strategy. So Stratford is not invested in this portfolio, or neither are our donors. But what we're looking at is as we look into 2021 and forward looking, there's no shortage of opportunities, specifically in affordable housing. The return is actually performing quite well, great security. And so what the investment committee wants to look at is could this be a possibility of blending into the overall investment program? The third one is around monitoring and evaluation of our investment managers. It continues to be a key area for us. We want to be proactive, not reactive, when we need to trigger either a formal review or make a change at the investment manager level. So we continue to refine our processes around making sure they're reporting to us on a whole host of metrics we want to look at. And last but not least is our investment policy statement, our IPS. It's starting to become a document that more eyes are looking at. It really is distinguishing the foundation and our governance model around our investment programs. And as a result, we're looking to make it a bit more encompassing as a foundation-friendly document. It's very technical right now. Accountants, financial advisors love it, but we want to make it so any donor can look at it and truly understand what we're trying to do there. So that's all for me. I know there's a Q&A at the end, so Esther and I will be sticking around to answer any questions, but I really want to thank you for your time. To Heidi and the team, Doug and the board, we really do appreciate the opportunity to have this partnership. We've loved it, and on behalf of our CEO, Martha Powell, and our board chair, Jan Pride, we always thank you for including us in these important meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. We appreciate the investment partnership we have with the London Community Foundation. I will now invite Amber Schock, partner at BDO Canada LLP, to present the highlights from the audited financial statements for the Stratford and Perth Community Foundation for the year ended December 31st, 2020.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight to present the audited financial statements. I am Amber Schock. As Stacy said, I'm the partner at BDO in Stratford that's in charge of the audit of the foundation. The audit report outlines the responsibilities of the auditors, management, and those charged with governance. As auditors, we're responsible for obtaining reasonable assurance about whether or not the financial statements are free from misstatement. As part of the audit, we identify and assess risks and design and perform procedures to address those risks and ensure we obtain sufficient evidence to provide a basis for our opinion. We look at internal controls relevant to the audit and also ensure that the accounting policies being used are appropriate. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements and for any internal controls within the foundation that they determine are necessary. Management is also responsible for ensuring that the foundation continues as a going concern and disclosing any matters that might have an impact on continuing as a going concern. Those charged with governance, who in the foundation's case are the finance committee, are responsible for overseeing management and the financial reporting process. Our audit report is qualified, which means that we cannot satisfy ourselves that donation and fundraising revenue is complete, except to the extent that the revenues are recorded in the foundation's records. However, all other areas of the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects as at December 31st, 2020. I will go over just a high-level summary of this year's activities and highlight this year's successes. On the balance sheet, we show the investments at market value. So the value has increased this year, both because of donations received and the investment income earned during the year. The foundation received the Canadian Emergency Business Account loan in 2020, of which $30,000 is repayable by December 31st, 2022, and it is shown as long-term debt on the balance sheet. Other items on the balance sheet have remained consistent year over year. On the statement of operations, there are a number of items to highlight. The donors were very generous in their givings for 2020, in showing an increase in donations year over year of almost $200,000. A large part of these donations were given to the endowment fund. The foundation also partnered with the Government of Canada in distributing the Emergency Community Support Fund. The funding received and granted during the year is outlined in Note 11 of the financial statements. So the total amount received and granted from this fund was $282,741. The foundation also initiated the Charitable Response Fund to provide financial support to local community-based organizations. The fund was established with proceeds from the stay-at-home gala and was expanded to include grants from some of the other funds. The details of amounts distributed from this fund are found in Note 10 of the financial statements, and the total amount granted from this fund was $74,500. Additional government grants received during the year included the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy, the Temporary Wage Subsidy, and the Canadian Emergency Rent Subsidy. Expenditures for the year remained largely consistent to prior year. There was an increase related to technology and equipment, which included costs associated with hardware and software for a new database installation. Total granting for the year amounted to almost $550,000, which is a great feat given the challenges that we faced in 2020. The overall increase in fund balances from prior year was almost $610,000, of which almost $410,000 was in the endowment fund. Part of our responsibilities as auditors is to communicate with the board of directors anything that comes to our attention during the audit that could cause concern from a financial reporting perspective. During the course of our audit of the foundation, we communicated with the board that there were no items that we felt should be brought to their attention. Thank you for allowing me to go over the audited statements.
Thank you, Amber. We will be doing the Q&A regarding the finances at the end. So I will pass it to Doug.
All right. Thanks, Stacy and Amber. May I have a motion to accept the audited financial statements for the Stratford Perth Community Foundation for the year ending December 31st, 2020 as presented?
Stacy speaking. I so move.
Dennis speaking. I second the motion.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. I will ask for a motion to appoint BDO Canada LLP as auditor for the fiscal year 2021.
Stacy speaking. I so move.
I see Lisa seconding. Thank you. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. And may I now have a motion to ratify the past actions of the Board of Directors for Stratford Perth County Community Foundation for the year ended December 31st, 2020.
Justin speaking. I so move.
May speaking, I second that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you. Okay, here's the fun and a bit of the sad part. Helen Dowd is retiring as a board member this year. And Helen is a proud resident of Perth East and has always been deeply involved in her community as an activist, a volunteer, an employee, and as an elected official. Helen is motivated by organizing and inspiring those around her to reach their full potential, as we all experienced. Helen officially joined the SPCF Board of Directors in 2016, but has been long connected to the organization. She and Bev Rock led the research on community events and fundraisers in our region, which resulted in the foundation deciding to launch its signature fundraiser, the annual Mayor's Gala. Other than a brief pause we currently have because of COVID, the Mayor's Gala has been a popular social event for our area since 2010, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to support the Community Foundation's operations. Helen and her husband, Tim, also established the Dowd Family Fund, a named fund with the Perth East Smart and Caring Community Fund. During her time on the SPCF board, Helen led the foundation's executive director hiring committee, has participated on the Regional Grant Advisory Committee and the Emergency Community Support Fund Review Committee, and has been the board secretary since 2019. Helen, on behalf of the board of directors and staff, thank you for your time and leadership. Your professionalism, expertise, and commitment to our organization and our community have been deeply appreciated. We wish you all the best and applaud your future endeavor of Operation Organize to help seniors, and know that we'll stay closely connected in the years ahead. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doug, for those beautiful words. And I have just tried to mirror what I got from the Community Foundation. They always say, if you volunteer, you get back personally 10 times. And that has totally been my experience. And I want to thank our staff for their amazing work that they do behind the scenes, the board members I've had the privilege to serve with, of course, yourself, with Dennis and John Wilkinson for the exceptional leadership that I experienced over the past 5 years, and to all the donors, past, present, and future, as we grow to be sustainable. This is an amazing organization, and I've enjoyed every minute. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen, for the kind words. Good luck.
Thank you.
I would now like to call upon Dennis Rosier, Chair of the Nominating Committee and past Chair of the Board of Directors, to present the 2021 slate of directors for the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation.
Thank you, Dad. I'd first like to offer my sincere appreciation to all the members of our nominating committee for their efforts throughout the year, identifying, reviewing, recommending candidates for our foundation's board leadership. I'm new in this position. I couldn't imagine a better committee of experienced people to work with. They included Mayor Dan Matheson, Mayor Al Strathy from St. Mary's, Julie Burns, Tim McDonald, our founding chair, Richard Smelsky, and Bert Vorstenbosch Sr., all of which I believe have been on the committee for a number of years, some of them dating back before I got involved 8 years ago. The nominating committee is also supported by our board chair, Doug, as an ex officio member, our executive director, Heidi Culleton, and Roxy Ray Roxy Ray, who is our marketing and outreach manager. We did something different this year. This past year, the Community Foundation transitioned to an online, very transparent, open call for board nominations. Interested candidates meeting the skills, community leadership, and geographic representation criteria that we had identified by the board were encouraged to apply in confidence to the foundation. The nominating committee reviewed all applicants and discussed all the board nominations that we received, and we make recommendations to the board of the individuals for appointment to the foundation board of directors today. So I am pleased to introduce two new board members to be elected for their first term of 3 years. The first is Brent Shackleton, and the second is Marcel Van Hull, both esteemed citizens of our communities, and we're thrilled to have them on board. I'm going to turn for a second this over to Doug to provide a better introduction of both Brent and Marcel.
Great, thank you, Dennis. I'd like to introduce Brent Shackleton. Brent is the broker of record, auctioneer, and owner of Shackleton's Real Estate and Auction located in Perth South. He holds a degree in economics and has a CRA designation. Brent has been involved in numerous local and provincial organizations, most recently as a director of the local community food center and as past president of the Rotary Club of Stratford. Brent is the recipient of a Paul Harris Fellow, the highest honor the Rotary Club can bestow upon a person, and represents a combination of fellowship and extraordinary service to the community. He resides on his family farm with his wife Terry and their 3 children. Brent's knowledge of our community and various professional and volunteer experience will be invaluable to our organization. We welcome Brent onto our board. And I'd also like to introduce Marcel Van Hull. Marcel is a senior vice president with the Infotech Research Group, a Toronto-based research and advisory firm. An experienced executive, Marcel brings a wealth of knowledge gained during his 30-year international career with IBM, where he held various global executive positions in sales, consulting services, operations, and business development. Earlier in his career, Marcel was a research fellow at AGFA and a scientific advisor to the Belgian Prime Minister. Marcel obtained a PhD in physics and received a master's degree in education and a bachelor's degree in economics at the University of Ghent in Belgium. Currently, Marcel is a member of the board of directors for 2 organizations and serves as past chair for the board of directors of Stratford Summer Music. Marcel and his wife, Edith, live in Stratford and Toronto. Marcel brings a wealth of experience, both professional and in volunteer leadership to our board, and we're pleased to welcome him.
Thank you very much, Doug. I ditto all the remarks about both those gentlemen. I would like to formally present the 2021 slate of directors for the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation. In their first term is Brent Shackleton and Marcel Van Hull. For their second term is May Brooks and Lucille Roche. And the directors continuing in their existing terms are Stacey Campbell, Rick Colbert, myself, Dennis DeRosier, Doug McDougall, Lisa McClellan, and Justin O'Rourke.
Thank you, Dennis. May I have a motion to approve the 2021 slate of directors for the Stratford Perth Community Foundation?
I so move. Dennis here.
I second the motion. Lucille?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Oops.
I see lots of hands up. Opposed? None noted. Motion carried. Thank you. I now call for any other business. Hearing none. Heidi and I are going to have reflection here.
Hi, Doug. Doug, I would love to ask you a question and hear your thoughts to share with our guests today. As you reflect on 2020, what are you most grateful for?
You know, Heidi, when I put my hand up for this position, with some help from Tim McDonald and John Wilkinson, I might add, I did not envision being a COVID chair. I have to note, though, Tim and John are two of a long list of volunteers and supporters of the Community Foundation, and I'm grateful for everyone's past work to get us to this point this year. I'm grateful for our essential workers and our societal safety net, and our Community Foundation is part of that for those less fortunate or sidetracked by COVID. And I referenced my parents in the opening remarks on that exact topic, and I'm grateful for that. As a student of history, I reflect on scientific knowledge and society today compared to 100 years ago with the influenza pandemic. And I mentioned earlier my mother-in-law, Esther, who was born in 1918, the first year of the pandemic, which targeted young people, and now COVID targeting the elderly. I told Esther at the start of this, you're living a movie bookended by pandemics. And now with the advancements in vaccines, we have a happy ending to the movie. I'm so grateful for the advancements we have made. And I'm grateful for our foundation that has matured to a point of being able to effectively grant over $500,000 this year. This is our primary role. And we were challenged, but able to meet that need, Heidi. I'm just so pleased with the year. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Doug. And you know, it has been an extraordinary year of both challenge and opportunity. As you've led our foundation over this past year, can you share some things that you've learned?
You know, reflecting on this question, Heidi, brought me to thinking of a mentor of mine, and you'll know this person well, your late father-in-law, Keith Culleton. Many will have known Keith, a tireless supporter and leader of our community. And I had the pleasure of serving with Keith for 11 years on the Festival Hydro Board. And it was a pleasure even when we were agreeing to disagree, for those that know Keith. So Keith would support this. Charities cannot depend on government or fundraising support forever. And he would be a champion on finishing the plan well started on our Community Foundation sustainability. I would be remiss on not recognizing two visionaries and doers that have us well along in that path, Tim McDonald and Dennis Rossier. And I'm speaking with that third visionary, that's you, Heidi, with the scope of your vision and skills. I know that we will get over the finish line and that Keith would approve.
That's so kind of you, and I am so fortunate to have spent time getting to know him and his leadership, and we have an extraordinary board here with us leading our organization here. So Roxy and Amanda and I are deeply grateful for the leadership that you provide and everyone on our board provides. And really part of what our board has such strength with is looking forward, looking at the future, looking at what could be and who we will be as a community foundation. Doug, as you look to the future, how do you envision our community foundation will address local priorities?
Yes, and you can tell from some of my comments that looking forward to the future has allowed me to reflect on the past. And so I'm going to go way back to 1845 on this one, Heidi, when my great-great-grandfather came to Perth County, and there was just forest, wildlife, no government or other primary support. People cleared land, built communities by working with and looking after their neighbors. They helped each other, and when there was an unexpected problem, they pitched in. My great-grandfather was killed at 42 years old, moving a house in the community, leaving a young wife and a family of 5 young kids. My grandfather Orman was 6 years old at the time. And the community pitched in. It's what they did. They supported and pitched in when there was a need. Different time, similar needs today. We need our Smart and Caring and other community funds in the 6 municipalities of Perth County to grow and remain unrestricted to meet the changing needs. And COVID has been a perfect example of changing needs, just as there was when my grandfather was 6 years old.
Thank you, Doug.
I have a question for you, Heidi. This past year has been challenging and yet rewarding. How has this experience changed your vision of what the Community Foundation can do for the community?
I think that those are two perfect words, challenging and rewarding. You know, I think back to this past year of what challenging meant to us, and you know, we faced the same challenges. We immediately needed to pivot and head home to our home offices. Our office is actually, many may not know this, but our office has been closed to the public since last March. And we have been working remotely and are really proud of that transition. It's been challenging to balance work and personal with schools that kept going back, back and forth between online learning and just redefining what our day looked like as we navigated our role in the community. Our investments were deeply impacted for a part of last year, so we faced some challenges to think about the uncertainty because the earnings that we receive from our endowments are critical to our annual grants that we provide. And we even needed to cancel our Mayor's Gala, which was the first time in 10 years, but this is something that every local organization faced, and we walked alongside them in understanding that, but through all of those moments of pause and those moments of needing to take a step left or right, or maybe back a step and forward again, the rewards of just experiencing our community coming together, communities across Perth County that were supporting one another. We were fortunate to be able to invest over $550,000 back into our community to local organizations because of the incredible generosity of individuals and businesses who have created endowment funds with us. And also through the government's funding of an emergency community support fund, we were invited to participate and we jumped right in. Rewarding when we think about just the honor of assisting individuals and businesses and families in creating their unique community legacies that have the power to give forever. And the generosity of our business community. The first question you wonder when you ask to a business partner is when you say there is no gala, would you still support us? To know that those business partners stood alongside us and said, absolutely, we're there. And we know that we'll all come through this together. So when I think about the challenges and I think about those rewarding moments and the moments as our organization, volunteers and committees and everyone coming together to get through 2020 and build for 2021, I am just deepened in my belief of what our absolute vital purpose is. And here is a community foundation to connect people with causes that matter, to collaborate with local causes on new solutions, and to be a vital funder in the community through both designated funds where those are very important causes to a fund and legacy we may care for, and in other ways, as you mentioned, Doug, to be able to have unrestricted funds that are locally invested and can address local, very localized needs. That's very exciting for us, and I'm excited about the idea that we will continue to build towards being a fully sustainable organization on our own right. So exciting to see this. And you mentioned a quote earlier. One of my favorite quotes is, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. And if I've learned anything this year, Perth County, St. Mary's, and Stratford, you are givers. And we're so, so proud and privileged to be here to serve.
Thank you, Heidi. And thanks to everybody on in this meeting, donors, sponsors, our wonderful staff, directors and volunteers. Thank you very much. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn the 2021 annual general meeting for the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation?
I so move. It's Justin speaking.
Thank you, members of the board, for your tremendous service. This concludes the 2021 annual general meeting of the Stratford and Perth County Community Foundation. We welcome questions or comments from our guests. And Roxy, I don't know if there's any on the chat line.
Not at this time.
Okay.
If anyone has a question, they can also raise their hand and unmute as well.
Well, with that, I think we'll close the meeting out. Thank you, everyone.